Hi everyone, I'm Alexa Mathieu, Head of Master Media Design with Douglas Cedric Stanley, Andrea Rodriguez, and all the first year and second year students of media design.
Hello.
We are super happy to start our creative coding series for this year. And for that, we will welcome our first speaker, Julian Hespenheide. We will present his practice as a creative coder and creative technologist. We have 20 minutes roughly presentation and 10 minutes questions. So if you are in the room or online, feel free to ask your question. And whenever you're ready, Julian.
Hi everybody, I'm Julian, and I hope my talk is not longer than 20 minutes because I actually could talk for hours about this. It's a topic that is very, very dear to me, which is creative coding, and I want to give you a little bit of an insight in how I think and also work with creative coding as a tool, framework, and a medium for expression mainly, and how I use it in my practice as a designer and artist. So yeah, salut, I'm Julian, and my tagline is most often that I work with text, fragments, bits, and code. I'm a creative technologist. That means I like to play around a lot with technology in creative ways that are not so like inside of a small box. I like to think outside of the box, but I like to explore also my boxes of different things. I'm a new media artist by profession, and I'm also an educator. So yeah, I'm teaching at my alma mater, the University of the Arts in Bremen, HFK, that's in Germany, north of Germany, and also at the University of Arts here in Berlin, which is called the UDK, Universität der Künste. I'm based in Berlin, and I've worked over my career in small startups, bigger startups, small agencies, big agencies, design studios, and collaborated with other artists. And I'm teaching, yeah, like I said, also like this stuff in the meantime. And what kind of connects all of these things, these different contexts, is the use of creative coding as a framework to think in and how work comes out. So usually I start with these things like to give a small like baseline, what is creative coding? And I feel like that's now more than ever a question is driving a lot of people, like in how they're like getting into this. And in my humble opinion, it's for a creative person, might be just one of the strongest tools you can get right now for free, basically. I usually try to point out that creative coding is more process oriented, and it's one of these beautiful things we learn at art or design universities, the process, and kind of forget when we enter the real world. So I feel like people want to enjoy things alongside with you. They don't want to see just another finished something like a commercialized product, etc. So I feel like code or text is just the input, but the output is anything you can imagine. So animations, flexible design systems, creative apps, poetry. You can think of it, you can make it. And usually I feel like what is creative coding too? It's like, have you ever thought to yourself, like, I want to become sharp, like I want to grow up? I think creative coding is the right framework because if you are coding, and I don't just mean vibe coding with AI and kind of blurring out the edges, you start to understand things from the ground up, like what goes together to form something new, and that this sort of knowledge accumulates over time and more knowledge and better design projects. Yeah, you will iterate over your own thoughts time and time again, which will help you to refine your skills, ideas, and concepts. And I really think this is becoming rapidly a lost skill in today's fast-paced world. So why would you choose creative coding instead of becoming a classic designer? I mean, no one is forcing you to take it up, but it's a skill that you want to take if you want to one-up your set of things that you can provide in your portfolio. And I think where things get interesting is it unlocks an almost infinite world of potential for you. The point here I'm trying to make is everyone is using these tools like Creative Cloud, Houdini, whatever, to produce things. And there are just a few, but like a limited range of creative apps out there designers use in their everyday scenarios to work on jobs. But yeah, they're great tools, but maybe one or two downsides are that almost everyone is using them. And secondly, they cost money. So licenses, and most of the time you don't even own the software anymore because you are connected to some stupid cloud. So what if you could create your own tool that is shaped how you act and think, that produces an output that is truly you? I feel like that's the main idea behind creative coding, that you express yourself. And if you code it yourself, you are very much like one step closer to realizing this. I'm just going to talk a little bit about my own philosophy before I finally start showing pretty pictures and stuff. But during art school, like there was always this question, like, what is the digital or what is code? Where can we categorize this? And what is the material's physical counterpart? Because in art school, we would work with wood, metal, different polymers like plastic and so on and so forth. But the digital itself is really different than those materials because you can multiply it as much as you want. You can make exact copies of it that are never changing. And I kind of got into this idea that it is sort of like clay. So you can form it and mold it. We do this with our hands in real time. Like we take our fingers and type the code, and then it's formed, and it's very soft, brittle, it falls apart. If I make a mistake while writing some code, if an exhibition or a deadline comes up, we kind of make it hard. Like we make a version of it out of it, we bake it, and then send it off. And then after that, it's something that we can do with digital code. We can make it soft again and work on it. That's a new version. So this is my philosophy, that I feel like code is this like ever-changing thing that gets soft and hard, and yeah, we mold all the time. So on the following pages, I will go through some of my works during studies. That's where I start, and go into professional life nowadays. I found this like random picture here during my crawl through screenshot folders, and it's just like code is, I think, something I will never gonna give up. One maybe disclaimer, during my studies, I said like I'm new media artist by profession. I studied digital media, and there was a heavy focus on physical things in the real world. Like we were using creative coding with the help of microcontrollers like Arduinos to control sensors, motors, LEDs, and put them into the real world. And I thought this was super interesting because before that, code was always this thing that would control something on a screen. But in this project I'm showing here, it's called Emile, which is named after Emile Bordeaux, named after actually the Bordeaux code, which is a binary 5-bit code and the predecessor of the ASCII code and the EBCDID. That's the extended binary coded this decimal interchange code. This machine uses these sort of masks that we laser cut to physically stop bits, or marbles in this case, to transmit signals. It's more of like a flipper machine if you want to, but it showcases the way how bit masks are being used in a way to let signals through or not. And this is also the idea, like let's say, behind sometimes physical computing, like where you can show exhibits that are a little bit more interactive, that are a bit more smarter. Yeah, talked about this like little masks. So we generated those masks in Illustrator and cut them out on laser cutter. But on the right side, there's like this very simple code snippet, which just shows like how the decision tree says like if like switches 1 and 2 are triggered, but 3, 4, and 5 not, then you should show this letter on that little display. So this is what we used as the code base, and it's not really yeah, complex, I would say. I'm jumping right into my master thesis here. And my master thesis is called Biotic Explorers Research Group, and it was a fictitious association of scientists across different European countries. I basically made this up as a thesis. I made a sort of narrative tent, and I placed that under a speculative design scenario in the 1970s and early 1980s during the Cold War, where I said that these scientists were building machines in collaboration with nature to transmit data through new novel ways. And yeah, like they were searching for something that how to work with nature and how to control nature. This is also an idea that I'm always picking up that is coming from cybernetics, where cybernetics was asking, like in the beginning of the century, like how can we control nature with the help of machines? Within this like scenario, I built different things. This machine that you see on the left was a bit transmitter that was sending single bits through soil with the help of pH liquids. It was kind of modifying the pH levels of a fungi that is sitting in this tub that you can see there. And on the right side is like the Arduino controller for controlling motors and the sensor and everything. There's some sound here. It's not good. Sorry, couldn't hear myself. So in this project, Continuous Erosion, I was in a new media artist residency, and while out in nature, I was asking myself, like, okay, how does the digital signal that we are basically always carrying on us, like the telephones, how does that kind of erode us in a way? Like it's really wearing us down, right? To be online all the time. And as a 90s kid, I know what it means to be offline. And I translated these thoughts into this machine that senses when during an exhibition a visitor comes into the room, has their phone on them. And it is most often like this, that when you're in a gallery or a museum, there's no Wi-Fi for you available. So your phone is searching like crazy for available spots. And these signals can be picked up by a microcontroller, and that's driving these motors, like trying to, yeah, kind of destroy that piece of stone. So it's a artificial digital erosion of that rock. In 2017, after my studies have then concluded, I started to work at a small design studio in Berlin. I moved to Berlin, and we would build installations for museums and galleries in Germany, but also on an international level. And I've worked there for 5 years as a creative technologist. So the upcoming slides are a wild mix of pre-documentation and finished things. And one important life lesson I learned there is to always give credits to the people who work on a project. So I'm trying to also give always credit back. So what I'm showing you now is a prototype for an installation we called seltene Lichtmomente, which translates to rare moments of inspiration, which shows excerpts from the Bauhaus Manifesto. And this installation was later installed at the Bauhaus Museum in Weimar in Germany. So one of the first questions that came up was very practical. How do you design animations or images for an object that weighs about 900 kilograms, is 4 meters long, 3 meters tall, and about half a meter deep? For me, it was obvious to build just a digital clone of it, which has exactly the same dimensions, same line height, pixel pitch, like the original, like a digi-clone. But it can be spun around and it can be carried around with me on a laptop. So this prototype you're seeing, or prototype software, was designed in processing version 3, which is still like one of my favorite versions of processing. And processing is a designer artist-friendly environment for programming visual sketches. Here you see like on the day when we basically let it run for the first time. Here we'll run through the text saying these parts of the manifesto. I don't know this anymore by heart. It's been a while. But in the end, that software that I coded became also the final software that is now running in an installation in the Bauhaus Museum. And I'm extraordinarily proud of this feat that processing is not crashing. For this installation, I was with my intern, like a single intern, kind of trapped in this construction hall for 3 weeks, and we were putting every single LED there, and we were putting every single cable. So this was really built with love, but yeah, commissioned by the museum in the end. The installation itself, if you want to be more precise, is nothing but a 360-degree screen. We have 30 rows of LEDs, and then there are like 80 LEDs on 1 meter strip. So in one row, which would go around, since we have 4 meters in the front, 4 meters in the back, half a meter times 2 left and right, we have 9 meters, I think, in one. So that's 720 LEDs, just one row, but we have 30 rows in total. The resolution of that, when you think about this, like, is super small. It's like just a 720 times 30 resolution, or 21,000 LEDs in total. If you compare this, top left is, for example, CGA, NTSC, VGA resolution. They are coming with like 640 times 480 resolution, which is way much higher than that light installation, which was a common resolution back in the 90s. And nowadays, like if you go to 2K, 4K resolutions, that's, yeah, it's a completely different story. Another project which you could see when you go around in Berlin is the project with the Humboldt University. It's called Bahnhof der Wissenschaften. It's, how do you say, train station of sciences. And here I built this sort of creative tool where you can draw like single lines across an image and then drop in a data set of words that they would use. And that you can see in the background, like to build these sort of, compositions. Another work where I thought like that is always very nice to show is this project called Daydream. And the question was here, like, how do you make a 20-year-old archive of work visible or appealing to a broader audience? So at the height of Corona, this graphic designer came to us and was asking like, hey, can you do something like with this hard drive I have here? there's like, it's a huge archive, and how do you kind of visualize this? Because he was just accepted into the Allianz Graphique Internationale, AGI, and for his solo entrance exhibition, he wanted to have this kind of welcome gesture to him. And we went through many explorations, and the one that we ended up is this sort of, we call it, it's a 13-minute long video that is being rendered with processing and then fed back into processing to replace single tonal values with pieces from his work. And in real, it looks like this. It's like an eclectic thing that you walk into, and it's like do 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 do, and there's some sound. But I think it's nice because it works on this like two levels, like as a broad gesture, and then you can look into like these smaller details. This was for the Natural History Museum, where we were tasked to come up with like a light system. And once again, I was a little bit like left alone on this project to figure out the technical things, let's say. But the task was like the Natural History Museum had this science project where they would digitize about 500,000 insects with a new high-speed system. And they wanted it to be staged, like every station inside of the room, like when there's the images taken for the insects, should be like highlighted and then should be sent over to someone who's sitting somewhere and then has the images on their screen. So we had these like pathways of light going through the room, and I kind of took those schematics, tried to figure out like what are pathways, like what are like these roads going through the system, what is a scene, and build this again in processing. And this was more like an exercise in roads and finding like pathways. So I called the processing sketch Lichtwege, which translates to lightways. And you can see like a little bit of the program on the right, but in the end you have this like, here are some like nice documentation photos, but there's like the station where someone sits, and then if they do something, like there's a light coming up and then it goes through the room. Yeah, we were doing a lot of things in that studio, like pitching. This is like a huge marble machine that we wanted to pitch to this science museum in China, but ultimately, yeah, we didn't go through. But there's like some pre-renders of how that could work, and we wanted to solve like basically physical pixels in space and then show things on these huge marble displays. Yeah, while I was going through this the last few days to prepare this presentation, I found a lot of things, and this one is a fun project from 2021, which was only realized, I think, 1 or 2 years ago when I was not even working there anymore. But this was like, I started the technical prototypes, finding right pixel fonts and pixel pitches for basically a huge wall of glass cubes and some huge LED wall behind it. So you can see it on the left side, how that looked like during the test aufbau, the prototyping setup. And then on the right side, there's also like the software and a final output, how it looks in space. So super nice. And what you can see there, the algorithm is a game of life algorithm with little elements floating around. So yeah, there's more and more stuff. I think this was somehow with a crypto company where we tried to do some real-time visualizations of the energy network. It was pitched but never realized. But I thought it was kind of fun how you can go from that 2D view into a 3D space and then try to use geodata somehow to show like how the energy network works. Yeah, this is maybe the last one from this studio detour, but we were working a lot with Bauhaus, different Bauhauses basically in Berlin. This one is now for Berlin Archive, and we were doing a test exhibition and trying to find different new formats. So this is in the middle, what you can see, a 32-inch big e-ink display. And you don't see those so often, like, because they're very fragile. Here's my old intern that worked with me on this. And yeah, we were testing out this thing with visitors in a separate space because the Bauhaus archive is right now still under construction until I don't know when. But I said the e-ink display is very fragile, and my old boss managed to break one, so we had to turn this into art by framing it. But yeah, in 2021, I kind of, out of an old interest in old school mechanical scoreboards, I wrote a software simulation to emulate this physical behavior. And over the course of the last few years, this had developed a lot, mostly in some weird after-hours mood. But on the left side, you see like my own tool, my own expression, early version, very rudimentary, just a few buttons. And on the right side, you see the current version. Back in the days, I would call it ASCII tool. Nowadays, I just call it text mode tool. And it has all of these little options, knobs, sliders, that probably I am the only person who knows what to turn on and off to get out some good results. So these first versions of that tool helped me to quickly cycle through ideas, generate animations, loops like this, what you can see. And I published these on Instagram and people liked it. And then I kept going for a long time, and I've been developing more features, added colors, worked on all sort of things like sharpness of the different glyphs, resolutions, so that it's just like as flexible as I want it to be. But the inspiration is coming like from the Commodore 64. So the glyphs that you see on screen are from the Commodore 64 color palette, from the system font, and the color palette is from there as well. But I also tried to, sorry, just trying to get this off. I tried to get these things back into physical space. So I made this installation called the Stochastic Oracle, a private public intervention, like an oracle you can ask, which is based on old Chinese oracle algorithms, the I Ching, and you can ask it a question, have it in your head. That's how the book works of I Ching. But what I mean with private public is I remove the polarization filter off the screen and then put it back into this little form. So when you look from the side on the screen, it's just white. But when you look through that little square, you can see the screen again. So you would have to be very close to it to actually see all of the contents of the screen. And this was for me, like a moment where text mode or ASCII was kind of bleeding between the digital world and the physical world. But yeah, the text mode tool was for me a catalyst for an independent career, and it generated lots of interest on the web. It was open and engaging for people, and they reached out to me and we got to talk. So I talked, for example, in the very beginning with people from Freitag Lab from Zurich. And yeah, I think right now we're just arriving in today's age, where I'm right now. And I found my niche with text mode and ASCII, and especially PETSCII, which is the Commodore version of ASCII. But yeah, Freitag Lab, they reached out not once, but twice, and they wanted the first time some like interesting gifts. So you see on the left a little bit of the thoughts we had going back and forth, trying to figure out like what could it be. that we sent. But these GIFs were supposed to be used in the newsletter format called FAQ, frequently finally answered questions. And the second time we were designing something for the exclusive members program called Federation. Then also same year, just really after that Freitag job, the New York Times reached out to me and they were saying like, hey, we need something very cool for a new tech podcast. It needs to be playful, open, inviting, but we don't want it to look bleak like The Matrix. And you know, Matrix is this movie from 1999 with all of this like green text coming down, and then there's Neo fighting the machines that are rising and AI. And yeah, I mean, we're about to enter that age somehow, right? But they wanted it to be playful, so you see the key visual on the top left, which doesn't actually use ASCII glyphs, but more symbols. And yeah, after this first job, there was another job to design some intro sequences for their YouTube channel and some additional assets for their live shows. So I was, or am always happy somehow and grateful, especially when on the right, top right, you can see it being used in real life. And on the left, you can see my opening animation basically playing over the face of Sam Altman, who's just the CEO of OpenAI. There's also like lots of other things that are not happening, like this with New Balance. But coming from my commercial side, I have lots of these projects I'm doing more in crypto space with NFTs. It's I'm not really buying into NFTs or cryptos, but it's somehow fun because it gives me a base to build these systems where I publish one time a code that can be used to generate a whole collection. So I made this collection called FSM, which stands for finite state machine, which is a core principle in creative coding, where you build like these little state machines that can transform how your code flows from here to there. And I'm still using my text mode ideas, but this time I went out of processing into P5.js, into the browser. So I can have these things running on my phone in real time and don't have to pre-render this. And I've built a couple of these things over these years. This one I just released a couple months ago called Pheno, which is a living plant, very pixel art stylish if you want. But yeah, it's a huge collection. Over 600 plants have been generated by different collectors. Yeah, but if I'm this will go on a little bit. Just to highlight a couple more projects. This one I did with Christian Lange, who is a super nice designer, and he reached out to me and asked like, hey, do you want to collab with me on designing this catalog for best book designs from all over the world 2023, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but he said like, hey, I saw this thing of you on Instagram, and which was a little globe planet, however, and he thought it was interesting, but how can we use this to build a design system, a flexible design system to visualize the award winners from that year's edition? So we were talking back and forth, like how to do this. Should we count numbers, pages to use this? In the end, we just said like, nah, fuck it. We're just gonna use the covers, do some polar transformation on this, and then use these covers basically in these little balls to show the award winners. So on the left, you see like the cover of that best book design catalog. And on the right side, when you unfold the catalog, you see in a very nice layout some of the covers planets, I would call them. And yeah, this was also just a job from recently with and human students from also Geneva. I think they're from Geneva. But they reached out to me. Were like, hey, we are working with some lawyers and they want to do some relaunch, rebrand for the system, and we needed to be nice and techy and open. So a little bit like closer to what New York Times was asking, but now in a different sector of compliance because they were working with machine learning. So they needed a little bit that is tech sexy, and yeah, I think I'm getting asked for this more often than I would admit it. Yeah, and there was then some exhibition like in Dubai where they asked me to send in just an experience, like on what was it, like one, two, three, four screens, projections on the wall and on the floor. So I handed them like something custom for that space, and I think that's what I say. Like I'm always grateful to see things back in space because it gives those artworks a little bit more depth. And this actually just started to show today in Marseille and correct me if I'm wrong, was Cyan in France. And it's gonna be there on show like for a week or two, just on the street. People walk by, and I already got these two photos of people just looking at this. I think it's very cute. Um, with two friends, Tim Rodenbrücker and Noel Gerd, we were tasked basically in how do you build an interesting and engaging process to find new IT talent and programmers for Materna. So we kind of built the system, which is a gamification of this recruiting process, but leaned in heavily on my aesthetic. Um, so it's a four-level gamified coding challenge. And in this recruiting process, you can kind of write the code on the right side, and then it checks if it's correct or not. And then it would show you, like in this visualization on the left, on which level you are, if you have guessed correct the code or not. Very fun challenge. And yeah, maybe the last project I'm showing now is a ratio, which I only released 2-3 weeks ago, I think, which is heavily playing with the ideas of what designers usually deal with, grids and ratios, and how to divide this up. So on the left side, I have this like table overview of different ratios that I feel like are aesthetically pleasing. And yeah, if I would point now in my program just to use the 12 ratio, like all 12 columns, it would look like this. But if I say like I want to have a ratio of 1 to 11, then it would probably look like this. And then a 4 by 4 by 4 ratio is like this. But before I got here, I was going through completely different phases. This was more of like an open era where I was just exploring like more figurative style, which would result in something like I didn't like so much because I'm very much a friend of the grid. Um, and I don't like to go away from raster too much. So I had to go back, but somehow find a way to integrate the free form with this grid aspects. So I iterated over my code, over my thoughts, what my heart was saying, and tried to find like a version that was, yeah, more me, uh, that didn't look so free. Here are some just debug views. So I always love to build debug views to prove that the frame rates are high, that everything is running real time. What are the things I'm actually using? Where's my state machine? These sort of things. And then I like to, yeah, admire these things also for a long time. That's, I think, maybe the one problem with creative coding, that you can get lost. When you find something very nice, you get lost for 20 minutes, you lose your thought, and then you have to kind of track back. But it's also cool to do this once in a while. And when you do some midnight coding, trying like in different format, like 9 by 16, yeah, you can also do fun stuff in the bed like this. Um, so yeah, the word ratio, then I've kind of went back to my sources like cybernetics. There was there's in Latin basically the meaning of computation and reasoning and proportion, which kind of fit all my reasoning for this project. And it's a tie back to early cyberneticists in the 1940s and 50s who actually had a club where they would come together to talk about how we can control nature with the help of computers. And I think it's not so unfamiliar to what we're doing nowadays with creative coding and controlling creativity in a way. Lots of the algorithms I use are very simple. There's this super nice book called 10-print character 205. You can download a PDF of this, and it's about pattern making, like how you can just patternize with randomness a lot of these complex structures. And just a small insight, like my color palette systems are very, very basic. Like it's just a decision tree on the right side, how we use randomness just to build these different or compose basically those colors that you can see on screen into groups of 3 or 4 colors that then are being used in some sort of system. And my under the hood, basically, my drawing system is also something that any newbie to creative coding could do. I'm just drawing these like colors and then I'm replacing them with the appropriate, how do you say, glyph. So it's a bit of a tonal-based replacement technique. And here are some more of the outputs. Yeah, so you can see a little bit of like there are some ratio divides, like on the number 9s. I think it's like a 4 by 4 by 1 by 3 division or something. But what I usually also do for these things, like projects, is for my projects at least, to release a small website that explains a little bit more of the behind it. The process, which I said in the beginning, is super important. And this is for me usually just a fun tool to explore the collection, and it's built with a lot of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And here's a bit more of a run through, like a full screen, how this system kind of also says its own name, which is somehow nice, I feel. And yeah, this was only recently exhibited in Barcelona Granollers at the digital arts festival called Responsive Dreams. And there they put up a bigger screen and a smaller screen just to show different ratios of that same artwork, how it can work on different screens. So my penultimate slide here is more like a takeaway. I wanted to showcase some code works that I wrote and that basically have changed in how I operate nowadays. And I would go as far and say there is no other industrial tool outside there right now that could take on this job, like the niche that I have found, and very specialized tool that represents me in the end with all of the shortcomings, but also flexibilities. And there's this nice quote from Marshall McLuhan that is saying, we shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us. So by making this tool, it kind of shaped me again and how I think and how I work with creative code in this special niche, but also everywhere else. And yeah, would like to say thank you for your time and looking forward to some questions.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much. I don't know if there's any questions in the room for Julian, and also online if you have questions as well.
Maybe I should just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation. That was great. The timing is perfect for us because my students asked me the question this morning, what is creative coding? for a workshop that we started, and I didn't really have an answer, so I'll just go with yours. That's fine. There's a really nice through line that I see starting from the first bitmass project, using the wood, and I guess it's sort of like balls going back and forth, to what I found in the ratio, and this whole sort of like, as you said, a sort of a toner-inspired sort of a matrix system. There's a kind of a physicality that you very explicitly were starting with, trying to, I guess, merge something physical and digital, or I guess computational controlling something physical. And then it seems like some of this newer work is more remaking, sort of giving a physical feeling to something that seems to be living inside of a screen. That there's a kind of, there's something kind of physical in the way in which you're manipulating this very simple process. We were talking about the Commodore 64 in our workshop, so, and I can really feel it. And the book is also, we were referencing it. Yeah. So I was wondering how you feel, especially today, with AI tools and kind of, all of these like virtual processes that are happening, that are replacing, and you use the word tool, and I guess this newer ratio, whatever system that you have is you're calling it a tool. But I guess it's because you're calling it a tool that helped me to feel like the physicality. And so to try and make a simple question out of my observation is, where do you think a lot of this work is living? Like where does it land for you? Where do you feel it is? Is it in some sort of in-between space? Is it some sort of a hybrid? Where's the physicality of it?
That's a good question. I mean, I would always love to bring it back to physical space, right? I think mostly it lives inside of the code. I mean, what we see, the output is just the output on screen. That's the end of the process of a rendering pipeline. But the work itself, I feel like, lives inside of the code. When I look at the code, I get a physical response by looking at it, like how much blood, tears, and sweat I put in there. And this is a response I would also get to any other tool. If I have a screwdriver in my hand, a hammer, these sort of things where I have a physical response to the tool. So I would love to say that the code actually is more to the physical space with me, but the digital output that we see on the screen is just digital, right? But it's trying to emulate parts of our real world. And I think maybe circling back to your AI tools question, when the virtual processes, I feel like they are actually removing us further from the process. Because if I can build a complete app in 2 days, a week, maybe as a beginner, just prompting, we have a huge problem because I don't know what are the ins and outs. The moment an edge case happens, an error, there's you will search for a long time, and you will just run into more problems because someone smart said once, every line of code that we add to our code, like every text line that we add, is a future problem or future maintenance problem. So you want to actually have as little code as possible to get the thing that you want in the best way that is just running. And especially with AI tools and all of this, like positive, how do you call this nowadays? Like the kind of a perplexity where they just run off into a direction and they're like, this is correct what I'm saying. And as a beginner in coding, you are not learning so much. Maybe there's a very simple story maybe, or like an analog to art school. Like imagine you're going to art school, you sit in a class and you just tell someone else to paint during like an act drawing, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is a great picture, here you can have it. It's like, oh, this is what I draw, and then you have not learned that skill with your hand. You have not suffered with your hand or with your body in a way. This is where I feel like the code is very close to you when you are running into these problems. So virtualizing processes with AI is actually, yeah, it's virtualizing them. It's abstracting them and also removing any human pain. So this is what I'm trying to get there.
You must feel it must be a difficult period that you're entering into, given the way the world is turning right now.
I'm actually very good in this period because
you still have your hands, you still have access to the process. Yeah.
I have not seen artworks on that level, let's say the same level, because AI is usually working more with like statistical noise, and I'm trying to control every single bit and pixel. And that's where it's usually done wrong, or the aesthetics don't match. So I get work, even though everyone else is losing their work because of AI. But it's also because I carved out a small niche for myself.
Yeah, even a podcast that is talking every single day about AI needs your very organic feeling work.
Yes, it's
There another question for Julian? You have a question, I can feel it.
Thank you for your presentation.
Do you know? I don't know if you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect. I really appreciate the trajectory of the work that you've shown, and especially like your master's thesis and the residency projects. Is there any future ideas that you would like to explore further with making with nature, how we can connect with nature?
I don't know if I'm connecting to nature so quickly again. I mean, I'm always like huge fan of cybernetics, and it's just like my core idea of how computation works, because at the ground of cybernetics, it's like you have a result and you feed it back into the system, and that feedback creates another feedback. So you're in a feedback loop of feedbacks, and that's just like cybernetics just goes wild on this. There's actually a second order of cybernetics that is iterating over the first order of cybernetics, and I love that stuff, obviously. Like I'm a little bit of a nerd for that. I would love to find a trajectory going back into that thing, but I think for now I'm actually preparing right now a little bit of the physical exercise on how to make those animations that I showed with more like a pen plotter system, like for real. And right now, like I can generate 120 frames per second with my code, right? I would love to make this machine that maybe manages to work on a huge grid and makes 0.5 frames per hour. And then kind of time lapse this, and then just see like what is the physical aspect of just building an image for a long time. This is where I'm looking maybe at for the rest of the year, like next to some other commercial stuff. But yeah, just going back to digital, to analog and physical is helpful, like to ground myself also. And there I can also, there's always connect into the creative coding, because you have to find solutions on how to deal with this or that, like why is that motor not running or whatever.
Another question not related to what I asked previously. Do you ever package your tools for clients? And if you do, how do you train clients to use these tools?
It's a good question. I usually offer this, but most of them don't understand that that I could send them a piece of software,
Yeah.
like that they can use to run whole campaigns from their own studio, in-house, whatever. Then how much does this cost? Okay, I can give you an estimate. This costs that much, blah, blah, blah. And then they're first of all baffled. All right, nah, we just want to have the outputs. But then over time, the outputs, the work I'm doing that in a different tool that I've basically created for them is the same amount. Like they're paying the same amount of money, but then they're just receiving PNG files, MP4s, GIFs. And I think this is just because they don't understand what is a flexible design system, a bespoke design tool. Maybe they're afraid, but most of the time I feel like, yeah, they don't want to even like take on that offer of having that design tool. And I tell them, okay, this could be just browser-based, like I can host this on my server for you guys. I can install this on your local system and then give you an hour teaching this. And there could be like huge buttons, press here first, then there, and there, and there. But they're like, no, this is has to be super easy. Or actually, our designers just want to have the MP4 files, the PNGs, uncompressed. Yeah. I think it will take another 10, 20 years until this kind of thinking also reaches those clients and agencies maybe. So until then, you have always a leg up in how to deal with them.
And maybe as a final question, I always ask at any creative coding series, do you like, if you have like one piece of advice for someone who's starting to do creative coding, like what would it be, like something to do every day, or just like how would you go about it?
I would say, yeah, you should try to find something that really interests you, because you can spend a lot of time with that. And even if you really suck at it in the beginning, you should keep up with it, because you cannot, I mean, with creativity, the only thing it's not doing is like getting less. Like the more you do something creative, especially coding in this sense, because like it's mostly connected to math and numbers and stuff. I'm super bad at math. Like I really suck at that. And whenever there's like some math stuff, like, oh, nah, let's try not to do this. But creativity doesn't get less, and you cannot pour from an empty cup
Creativity,
in,
kind of.
in the moment like you need it. So you just
No.
keep on it.
Yeah, well, let's stop here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It was
Thank
so
you for
nice to
having
meet
me.
you.
Beautiful work. Wonderful work.
Yeah, it
Thank
was
you,
so great.
guys.
And yeah, good luck with everything, and let's keep in touch.
Yes, thank you. And to all of you students, have a good journey on this. Like, I really wish you the best. And if you have something also, like, just send it over so I can see it. I don't know, like, if you need someone to look at it, I'm always happy to look at beginners' works.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Great. Thank you, Julian. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.